Hi, everybody. It's exactly on time. I'm here at 1 o'clock. We're going to be discussing labyrinths today. And I was sort of amazed. I guess I shouldn't be. But I know that the first reference I ever remember intellectually about labyrinths was in school reading the myths and how the Minotaur was inside a maze. And maze and labyrinths have a kind of different significance now. But mazes and labyrinths were a little bit intertwined in the classical era. Anyway, I'm going to show you a picture of what labyrinths look like. Okay, these are all forms of labyrinths. You can see some of them look square, rectilinear. Some of them look round. The ones I've ever walked have all been round, the circular looking ones. They can come in all forms and all shapes, they're counted by the number of folds they have been on them, and I won't go into that because there's no really um, understanding that. I mean, unless you're going to go draw some labyrinth somewhere. So but this is what a labyrinth looks like, and I'll go back to this image of a labyrinth. But the sort of circular one that's in the bottom middle is the one that I first saw in a cathedral in France in 1966 when I was touring Europe with a choir. Hi, everybody. I'm kind of letting people get in. And hi, Dr. Gail. Um, and I did want to clarify. I had a couple people write things in. They all said they were going to looking forward to hearing what I had to say about this. I did this show on labyrinths, 3 or 4 years ago. And I guess I just kind of forgot because I kind of know it's there. And I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to discuss what labyrinths are, where they come from. Then I'm going to discuss how you can find one. And I can guarantee you can find one in your area that's a walkable one, usually. And if you really get in love with the idea, I have to have my own labyrinth, you can actually buy little labyrinths you can put on your desk, and you can move your pen into the center. And I'll explain to you there are three phases to from my perspective of using labyrinths. So that's kind of what the class schedule is. So, don't leave early. It's not gonna be repeating the same things over and over again. Hello, Sandra. Hello, Dr. Gail. Hello. I know, God, if it's hot in Chicago, it's hot. And I remember when I was a child, I don't think I ever remember it getting up to 100 in the first summer. It was in the summer of 1966 that I remember it got up to 100, but it did it when I was in Europe. And when I came home, everybody told me how terrible it had been. But yeah, and it reached 100 here yesterday in Dallas, but it was for very briefly, and then it went away. And it's not like starting out at like 100. Oh, I think she's saying this is a a, a labyrinth somewhere, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. But let me tell you a little bit about what we know about labyrinths. Labyrinths have um, several different places that they can come from. Um, One is the classical era, which is the oldest labyrinth that I could find in Europe was 2000 BCE, before Common Era. It's in Spain. It's in the ground. They walked it so much, they stomped the dirt down, put little rocks around it, and it's a legitimate labyrinth. You can see it. It's in Magorda, Spain, I think. But those were more circular forms of labyrinths, and they were labyrinths where people walked to the center, and then you followed the same sort of circuitous path to get out. Then there was the Roman uh, labyrinths, which is like this ones that looks like a square box in this picture. That's what Roman labyrinths look more like. Roman labyrinths were more square, and they were on the floors. they were more decorative, and they actually had them on walls. So I don't think you're walking on the walls. But that's kind of the Roman sort of look for a labyrinth. And I'm going to remove that again. And then there's a labyrinth that was at my church. It looked like this. And this is a more of a medieval labyrinth. I've actually walked this labyrinth, and if you see, you can start, there's a little trail that comes in, and you get to the center, and then you follow the trail out. And this one is based on, as Elizabeth's saying, it's based on the Chartres cathedral pattern. And the rose in the middle is the rose of the Virgin Mary. And part of the idea of labyrinths in the churches was it gave you a way to go on a pilgrimage within your own church. And the people would sometimes say crawl on their knees in these things. I mean, remember, they like that. But it was a very decorative, beautifully laid in the tile thing. The one that we have at our church, it was an Episcopal church here in Dallas. It was given to us. We had a church member who was part of the Worldwide Labyrinth Society, and I'll put their information up for those of you who want to see it. They had so much money built up, and they were giving out grants for spaces to put a labyrinth in. And this is in the recreation hall at my church. And that is actually, when I first went to church there, something had happened to the chapel that was attached to the church, and it was unusable. It had no heat and cooling. And this is actually the room where my youngest child was baptized. This is on the floor there. And I've gone on New Year's Eve one year, we had a party there, but the party was to walk the labyrinth. We had a person come. They explained the history of the labyrinth, some of the stuff I'm telling you now. And then we all took turns walking, and they actually have prayer shawls at the church that you can put over your shoulders to show veneration from when you're walking in the church. This lady doesn't happen to have a shawl on, but that you can have those. And that's based on a medieval pattern of a church. And then there's contemporary patterns that are being created now. I saw a beautiful one. I couldn't get a picture of it, but it was a heart. It was a heart-shaped one. And it was all kinds of fun. But most labyrinths are kind of based on what you saw at my church. This is one that was put into a beach. It was a temporary thing. It was there for a part of a summer. A group put it together. It was in California on a beach. And then this is another outdoor labyrinth that's in a woods somewhere, and I don't know where it is. All it says is this is an example of an outdoor labyrinth. And what's interesting about this labyrinth is it's almost a labyrinth and a maze. Mazes a lot of times will have walls, and there'll be several different ways you can navigate through a maze. In a labyrinth, there's only one way in and one way out. And that has to do with the spiritual path that you're trying to get to there. Let's see what we got in comments. Okay. And hi to everybody who's coming in. And I will repeat some things because I think people get in late and they miss it. But anyway, the classical grid, because I think in terms of grids, but the classical pattern is called a seed, and because it's round like a seed. And in Europe, it looks like the one that I showed you that I walk on from my church. In India, there's a very old labyrinth, and it's called the Chakra Vieja. And I'm probably saying that like a Spanish word, not an Indian word. But it was named for texts about a battle where they discussed going into the battle and contemplating things and coming out of the battle. So that's also a pattern. And that same pattern that is in that one that had to do with the battle is also women walk it during their pregnancies to help with their childbirth. Man, I'd have tried anything. Anything, let me tell you. And Baltic cultures are also famed for, the Northern European cultures are also famed for the seed type things. Like the Romans, like I said, the Romans were the more square form of, I like the one that's on the lower left corner, and even the one that's more rectilinear. That those are Roman. Those can be meandering. They also can be called what they called serpentine. They would design them to be serpentine, and they're but they were special because they had so many right angles in them, and um, the 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 most famous medieval one is in Shatra, and I didn't get a picture of it either, but it looks a lot like the one I showed you that was at my church, and that one was what they call an 11-fold, and it has to do with how you count the rings that are around it. So, but I don't think that whether it's 11-fold or 6-fold or whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, okay, how can you find a labyrinth? Well, let me show you. You can go to this website that I've got here, and you will find a navigable map. This just happens to be the US. They also have where they are in Europe, where they are in Canada, where they are in the Middle East, all over the place. And as you can see, every one of those little red dots is a labyrinth that you can find in America. And when you go in, I found my church's labyrinth on it. I navigated the map. So you can go on this map, and you can go to the area you live on, and you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and you will find a labyrinth in your area. And so if you're interested in doing this, so you say, okay, why do I want to go find a labyrinth in my area? Whatever would I want to do that? And the spiritual uses for labyrinths, you find them, a lot of them are in churches, a lot of them are in hospitals, a lot of them, there are public areas, there are parks and cities that have built them into their parks. And what you use them for is when you start on the outside, you go in and you contemplate on something you want to release, let go, or understand. But you walk into that environment and you contemplate on what you really want to, like when I did it at New Year's, there was stuff going on in my life, and I really concentrated on the way in. And at my church, we used to have a thing where they had stones you could carry in and put in the middle of the labyrinth to leave. So you unburdened yourself. You left the stone behind. Then you walked out and tried to blank your mind. It's like a walking meditation to blank your mind. And you try to receive information from outside. And that's when you're in the center of the stones, you've come in and said, I want to be released this. You lay the stone down. You stand there till you feel like you really need to move. You feel that as you move, you're going to learn more. And then while you're returning back out of the labyrinth, you're receiving the message that you've been asking for. So it's an active walking meditation is what I understand labyrinths are for. And Um, I found a whole booklet. If you want it, you can write me at my email. If you can go to crystaldirections.nancyjean@gmails.com, put in the title PDF on labyrinths, and I have a 10-page PDF written by a guy who builds labyrinths all over. He goes into a lot more detail about all of the bits and pieces of it than I could ever do verbally with you now. And show that again. That's my email. If you write me there, I will be glad to pack this little PDF off to you, and then you can read some of the more fine print sort of stuff and comments. So now I'm taking questions, guys. If you have questions about labyrinths, I think I've shown you how to find them. And actually, I got this pamphlet off that website that I showed you. No, I don't want that. I want to take that off. Okay, I want to show it. I did it. There, StreamYard has blessed us with a new tool that will allow you to set up things with timers, except it's right close to where you also turn it on. So sometimes you turn on the timer when you don't mean to. Not at all. Another one of those problems. Okay. Cartomancy, I got your stuff. I'm using it. I'll let you know how it works. She has an herbal tea thing she sent me for inflammation. Not that I'm terribly inflamed, but I have had some sinus problems. Anyway, yes, there is a very famous one in Vancouver, British Columbia's West End. There's a church with a labyrinth in its hall. There's labyrinths all over the place in Dallas. There, almost all the major health centers have a garden where family, and they're wonderful families to go sit and get quiet and walk and think about things. And I don't. All I want to let you know is that there is another way to have a spiritual meditation. And like I said, if you can't find a garden near you, the only people I see that are not in this are like really high up in the Rockies here and the Rocky Mountains over here. But otherwise, we're just filled with them. Just filled with them. And Europe, you would expect it was the same way. I took the picture of Europe, but it looked like someone just put red jelly on the screen. It was not meaningful geographically. I think you can kind of see everything that's going on here. And I don't have a labyrinth walker person with me. So if anybody has a question, you need to ask it now. And let's see. And they're just all kinds and types of shapes, but the most common one is the one I showed you. Great. Yeah, you would have, because every hospital in Dallas, when you go over, and I came over to Dallas thinking, because I remember when we put the labyrinth in our church, there was one in one other church in the city. And when I went over this time, and that was a long time ago, because that was in the early 2000s, it was 20 years ago. I mean, it's like, blech, this whole thing. So I had to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. And I found the link. And when you link to a place that says it has the labyrinth, it tells you all about it, the hours it's open. And of course, if it's an open space, it's kind of open all the time. A lot of churches, they'll have days off. Do I know what The oldest labyrinths, well, yeah, there's some that are in Crete and some in the Minoan culture. Because remember, the Minotaur was supposed to have been inside a maze, inside a labyrinth. And they have representations of them. And but the oldest one that I know that I could see a picture of was in Magorda, Galatia, Gaul. I'm not going to try it. It's a Roman word for Gaul, but it was dug. It's a site where they're digging up a Roman city that was there, and there's a labyrinth in the ground there, and it's 2000 BCE. That's the oldest one I saw. So, let's see, what else can I tell you? Are there different qualities, different shapes? Um, I don't know, Mimi. I've only worked in the ones that were based on the Chatra uh, model, which has the Mary Rose in the middle. There's the guy who did the pamphlet that if you write me, you can get for me. He's developed one that's shaped like a heart, and you move in and you trail in, and it's in a hospital center somewhere. So they're trying different contemporary things. There's also, he gets into the whole idea of labyrinths versus mazes. And labyrinths, I think, are usually tied to meditative techniques, or in obviously in Christian churches, to the Christian church at the time. Mazes are kind of just fun. There's a lot of British estates. That's one of the things that Capability Brown did when the guy who built a lot of the formal gardens in the Georgian times. He was really big on putting in labyrinths, and then of course in the Midwest in the fall, when the corn's really high, people will go into those and see. And then, okay, were the Celts interested in labyrinths? Well, have you ever seen a Celtic knot? I would think most Celtic knots look like labyrinth forms. I don't. They were more interested in building stone circles and things with stones. Um, and, obviously the most obvious one is Stonehenge. But if you go to England, there's stone stuff, there's stone sticking up and in shapes and doing weird, funny things all over the place. And sometimes those mark graves, and sometimes those marked holy places. Um, if you ever seen, there's a YouTube channel called Prehistory Guys, and they did a whole documentary you can find on YouTube. If you go to Prehistory Guys, you can find the name of it, and the name is escaping me now. But they started on the most eastern edge of Ireland, and they followed all the major stone monuments that are across England, and they ended up at some that are way, way high. Orkney may not mean much to you, except it's a weird name, but it's islands that are in the most northern part of Scotland. And actually, there's a lot of belief that that there was a lot of that was sort of the center, because it was so close to Europe, and because before the Ice Age completely when took up came about, there was a whole England was actually attached to Europe. It was attached by land to Europe, and that's a whole interesting thing. But a lot of their earliest stone monuments are up there, and there's one that they do the thing. If you go there at a certain time of the year, there's a thing that's very Stonehenge-y, and they're very tall stones, and they kind of swoop down in an arch. And if you go at the right time of year, the moon follows exactly what that arch is. It's really cool. So, and if I can figure out the name of that show without being rude to y'all, Druids were into trees. Druids weren't into, I don't think. I mean, the thing is that at the end of the day, I watch way too much prehistory about Britain, but there's things where they're constantly carving out circular forms all over the place in England. And I'm going to see if I can find the prehistory guy, because if you can go to their things. Yeah, they're right now they're doing a thing between um, Gobek Gobekli Tepe to Stonehenge, and they're trying to tie how all of those stones things were related to each other. But um, movie playlist channel podcast. I can't find. They don't list the name of their movie, which is weird. Well, it's old to them, so it's probably not weird, but and they're kind of funny old guys, and they fill an hour of time for people. But I've I've been to some, and there's a lot of uh, stone monuments, the big huge rock monuments uh, in northern France. And northern France, the reason that part of France is called Brittany is because their people were related to the Britons. That's where, matter of fact, Nathan and I discussed that because his family comes from Brittany. And he, if you've ever watched Nathan, third of the Third Wish, he has a lot of Celtic stuff because his family were Celts too. There were Celts everywhere. There were Celts all the way over to Turkey. But as far as labyrinths go, um, I don't know that that's part of it. Also, labyrinths are not part of the Islamic tradition, which I when I was looking stuff up today, I ran into that. They don't have a tradition of labyrinths at all. And I mean, because hi, Linda Bishop. Hi, Sandra Doe. Uh, what else is going on? I I thought I had an hour show, and I don't really have an hour show. I'll go back over some of the stuff I started with. Um, let's see. This is kind of the most common form you'll see in the U.S. Um, that's actually in the floor of the church that I belong to. That's in the floor of the meeting hall where my youngest child was baptized. It was not in the floor then. That's happened since then. And it's like the ones that are inside churches and stuff. If you're like me, and I don't tolerate any of the heat, is it's a good place to go walk. It's a good place to make a point of going and meditating. Um, and it's based on the circular form of, I'm going to get rid of the banner, hide. It's based on the circular one that's in the middle. And I always liked labyrinths, and I liked labyrinths before I did sacred geometry. And you can see, if you look, there's There's one way in and one way out, and that's what I'm going to tell you. And in your way in, you work on what you want to release or what you want to contemplate or what you want to think about. Like I said, New Year's Eve, my church sponsored a thing, and we all went, and I went with a bunch of friends, and we walked the labyrinth instead of going out and getting drunk, which is always an option. Um, and and it's an Episcopal church, so you can drink in that church. But we didn't. We sat there and we had a whole lesson on how to use the labyrinth. And then I'll show you some samples of other labyrinths. This is one. If you go to that World Labyrinth site that I had at the bottom, and you can just put in Labyrinth Locator, and it'll tell you. It's an organization. It'll tell you where to find labyrinths. This is one that was put by the sea in California for one summer. It was a temporary thing. It was just a place to get people to go. And that would be a lovely walk. It'd be a great place to walk just to walk. And then this is one that's in the woods, and I don't know where it is. It just says outdoor labyrinth in the woods. I have no idea where it is, but wouldn't that be fun and lovely to go walk in and feel cool if you figure out where it is. Okay. No, actually, I'm drinking stuff to keep myself hydrated. My voice sounds a little bit weird because I'm still having some sinus problems. Oh, in this one? Oh, they would get out. It's just sort of chopped off at the top, but they'd start going in. They'd go in and they'd head immediately to the right, and they'd follow all those through the right. Then they'd go down another hallway. They'd go all the way to the left. Anyway, they would work their way into the middle. Those things do work, and yeah, it you can get it. You can't. They work. You can get in. You can get out. I mean, besides if they're on a floor, you can just walk out. You know, it's not like anything's trapping you in there. Okay, well, that's what labyrinths are about, guys. And I'm trying to see if I missed anybody's questions. And my banner that I found for you was, and this thing wasn't up, I don't think, when I did my first show on labyrinths, but that is the one where you can find maps like this, and you go in those little red dots and zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and you can find one in your very own. Apparently, they have some wherever that is. I think that's Newfoundland. My geography north of our border is not what it should be, although my parents tried to train me. By the way, today I am now a citizen. I'm no longer having a president trying to throw me out of the country because my parents were not U.S. citizens. They were from Canada when I was born here. I wasn't terribly worried, but I did have a cousin who redid her guest room and said, just in case. She lives just over the border. On the new bridge, we built this incredible bridge because I remember, I'm getting into that subject I don't like to discuss much. We built this incredible bridge to Canada between Detroit and Hamilton, where that's part of Canada my parents came from. And it's just a gorgeous bridge. And it's absolutely, because I remember the bridge we used to go over. It used to kind of remind me of the bridges we went over to go across the rivers in the Midwest, and they were not great, great, great bridges. And Dummy won't allow them to get the federal officials to open up the U.S. end of it. So we have this gorgeous bridge that you can walk across or drive across to Canada on the lakes, on Lake Huron, and we can't go across it apparently. So I'm just saying, July is a weird month. Oh, what's going on with me? The 3rd of July, I'm going to be on with Sabrina Savard, and she's doing a July 3rd celebration for those of us who want to celebrate who we are and what we are. and she's going to have readers and all kinds of stuff over there. I'll be sending you a notice about that. I'm still, let's see, I'm still looking, still doing 6 months readings. Did a lovely one yesterday. Yeah, your son Catherine's probably fine, and Linda Bishop, I'm sure your son's fine. It's the Gordie Howe Bridge. That's right. You know that, Catherine, because it's right on top of you. Grid update. It's together. I'm just making sure it's sticking properly, Catherine. But all the stones are there, and they're all together. It's just me getting it done. And thank you, Terry. Anyway, I've had done some lovely readings recently, and I'm really excited about the people I've been working with, and I'm hoping this kind of opens up another spiritual way that you can work with the world. And with that, I'm going to close the show and just say, you know, oops, wait. I'm going to hide you. There's the place. If you go there, I guarantee you can find a labyrinth. You're probably going to be shocked at how many are around you. I was shocked at how many are out there now. I was shocked at how many are in the Dallas area when I remember we were one of 3 at my church, and now there's so many. And I'm just excited and wanted to share that with you. I'm going to share with you some of the other things I talked about when I first started my channel, because I already have the graphics. Yes, I am. I'm in far north Dallas now. I was near central Dallas. Please go out and find one. They're all kinds of fun, and they have schedules, and they have some of the ones I looked at this morning had schedules, and they had times when people could be there to help you with it. I know at my church, you just go to the front door and they let you in, and you can walk through. They explain to you about the shawls. There are a bunch of women at my church knitted and crocheted the shawls. And so that's kind of fun. But everybody's saying, oh, you used to live in Plano. If you used to live in Plano, you would have lived very close to where I live. I keep saying if I sneeze hard enough, my chair will back me up into Plano. That's how close I am. Okay. Okay. Have I decided on the book club? Yes, I have decided on the book club. It will be through the YouTube membership. And I will be sending out which titles. I found 2 different books that are in series, and I think I'm going to start with The Accidental Medium, and then I'm going to go into the one that's much more witchy woo, the Myrtlewood Crones. But there's 5 books in each. There's going to be lots of stuff to talk about. Lots and lots of things to talk about. And a couple of people have already told me they read The Accidental Medium after I talked about it, and they said that I was right, and it tied with their experiences. Like, you start doing things, you start seeing things, you start understanding things. And whoever wrote this book's been where we've been. And when you get into her further adventures, they are absolutely incredible. So I'm trying to figure out a best time, because we're going into vacation time and stuff for people. But yes, it will be through my membership. I think my memberships are $5.99, and it'll be in the $5.99 membership that you can be part of it. I have 7,000 some members, some subscribers. And I know that according to the statistics I've seen, that's less than 50% of the people who watch my shows. So they don't even subscribe. So I figure, this one I'm going to do for the people who support me. And I also think that shows you spend a little more time really working on your things. Like, I'm a member with Tim Walter, and I get a lot more out of the membership things with him. And when we do the membership things, I'm going to try to figure out a way to open it up, not just through YouTube. But anyway, you'll get notified through YouTube what you need to do. And I have Zoom that I can put 100 people on the screen that I think 100 people are going to show up. But uh, that getting organized for those books is going to take a lot more than just saying, ask me questions and I'll read for you. You know, those are the easiest shows for me to do. It's to just lay out cards and um, decide what I'm doing. So anyway, and people are fading and wandering off, and I can't blame them because I need to go wander off. I need to go get some food. I haven't eaten. I've had coffee today, but nothing else. Anyway, so I will send you all the stuff. I'm working on my stuff. Oh, also the other show I'm doing in the middle of July, on July 15th, I'm doing a show with Nath and Jeffrey. And the reason I put those two together is Nath has created a really interesting tarot deck based on the saints. And he sent me the deck, and he sent me his little bookie about it and to interpret it. And his interpretations of the cards are wonderful. Jeffrey has just finished, or is in the process this week of finishing he's doing pamphlets about each card that's in the deck, major and minor arcana. And we're going to talk about the creative process of coming up with creating something in the world of woo. Okay. And the labyrinths that are in the hospital settings, they're like chapels that are in hospitals, and they're a place for the family to go. I know that when Bill was in a hospital, I took him out and we sat in the one that was there, and it was very calm and peaceful, and it gave me something to do while we're doing that stuff. That's when Bill was dying of cancer and had a stroke. So he could not walk the labyrinth. He couldn't walk anything, but he enjoyed it, and he knew what it was, and it is a place for people to heal. It's a place to be healed, to be enlightened, to touch space with yourself, and that's what most of us need to be doing right now, is touching space with ourselves. Because I put this in this time of change. People say, well, what do I do about all this stuff that's going on around me? Walk it off in a labyrinth. And yeah, we're all hoping that this energy settles down a bit. I hear it's supposed to. And you know, I just try to keep myself calm. I was told that part of the deal of coming back and not dying a year ago was I had to quit being angry. So I quit being angry. Our Labyrinth's wheelchair accessible. If you go to that site that I have up here, and you find a labyrinth in your area, it will tell you everything that, like where I was in my church, that was wheelchair accessible. And I guess you could wheelchair yourself through that. I don't know. But never having faced that challenge, I don't have a real good answer for it. But the other ones, like some of the ones that are out in the woods and stuff, I'm not sure those would be. But anyway, just go find ways to settle yourself down, get calm. And that's what I pray for everyone every day. And for us to find peace and joy. And wasn't that a fun full moon? And Mercury went retrograde in the same day. And I turned my computer on, and none of the microphones and cameras would work. So that was kind of my Mercury. I had to unplug everything and replug it all back in. What can I say? Anyway, I'm hoping y'all have Mercury retrograde is a chance to rethink what we've already thought. So it gives us a chance to open up our minds and to go into upgrade, to change, to be different. So we've got that through the 29th of this month of July. So I'll send out the thing about Sabrina Savard on the 3rd. I know I'm going to do the thing with Nath and Jeffrey on the 15th. And anyway, I really love all of you. Thank you so much for your support. It really, I'm trying to re-go through the things I've talked about before, because I was sort of shocked when people said they didn't know what a labyrinth was. Well, now you know. What can I say? Say, everyone stay safe, and yeah, stay hydrated. When it gets hot, it gets to be really vicious. Bye.